Welcome back, everybody. It's time once again to check out one of the colors from the Gundam card game beta. Doa here with you. Now, we looked at blue last week. This time around, we're going to take a look at white. And just to sort of catch you up to speed in terms of what we're doing here, I'm rating the cards based on how good I think they're going to be once the full release comes out. So we're going to talk a little bit certainly about how good they are in the beta environment right now. But you have to remember that the beta set is kind of limited, right? It's about, I think, 86 cards if I remember correctly. So really, when we look at these colors right now, we're getting a flavor of what they're going to do, not necessarily their full strength. So I'm going to keep that in mind when I rate them, but at the same time, this is going to be based on my experiences playing these cards and then kind of making some educated guesses on how strong they're going to be once we see a little bit more support for everything coming through. So the tier list itself, mostly on my predicted strength of the card down the road, but I will make sure to talk about a little bit how good they are in the beta edition right now, in case you're going to one of your beta locals soon, you know, where we're all going to play in those pre-releases, or if you're just playing against friends, you happen to get your hands on a beta kit already, lucky you. But either way, I hope this will be helpful, and if you're just looking forward to the game, I hope it's going to be useful in terms of maybe giving you an idea of what color you want to play in the game, because right now each color does have a pretty distinctive theme, and it's been fun to see everything sort of come together. So in white, we pretty much have the Witch from Mercury and Gundam Seed things going as far as I'm aware. And, you know, so there's your franchises with that. But let's dive into it. The first card we're going to take a look at, and you can find all these cards, by the way, on the official Gundam card game website. The big versions are the ones I'm just going through at that. So if you want to go and look at these yourself, you can do that. But let's start out with a pretty vanilla Gundam, pretty basic. It's the Gundam Aerial bit-on form. And, you know, I've heard people pronounce it so many different ways. Bit-on form. Because it's like the bits are on. It's a form where the bits are on. I don't know. Like the bits are attached to the Gundam. I'm not exactly sure. I'm watching the series, and even I can't quite decipher the name of this one. But either way, it costs 2. It's level 4. And the stat line is 3-4. That's pretty standard from what we're kind of seeing in the card game beta as far as a mobile suit that doesn't have any sort of abilities attached to it. That's pretty normal. It does have the little bonus where it's got Suletta Mercury as a matched pilot. So just the fact that it has a link unit in it is nice too. I think this is going to be one of those, like, you're going to put it in your beta deck if you're playing white, but you're not necessarily going to you know, use it in your standard deck down the line, unless you really need a lot of aerials, because you really want to do a lot of matched Suletta Mercury piloting. So for this one, I think I'm going to put it in, B, that once the full release comes out, I don't know if we're going to see it come into a lot of decks. I don't think it's bad right now in the beta environment, but I don't see it, you know, again, vanilla card. I don't see a lot of that going through. All right, so the next one we're going to take a look at is, there we go. It's going to be the Demi Trainer, and this is a card that I think has a lot going for it, honestly. It's only level 1, costs 1. That means you can play it on your very first turn, whether you're going first or second. 1/1 stat line, that's fine. It's a turn 1 card. But the fact that it has blocker, I think really, really puts it above a lot of the other cheap cards we've seen, because we all know from lots of different card games how important it is to just have those chump blockers once in a while. Just those 1/1 throwaway units that you can just put in the way of a big attack, and I think that's pretty important in this game. So as far as this particular card, I think I'm going to put it in A. And honestly, I almost want to put it in S. I'm not even kidding. Just because, you know, I think it's going to be one of those cards that might be kind of core. If you're playing white, you're going to be including this thing. So we'll see. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But for now, it's going to go in A. I might move things around a little bit as we go through. And here we have Suletta Mercury herself. The pilot card, of course, burst added to your hand, as many pilots are. Level 4, cost 1. So it is a little bit higher level, but generally the better pilots are level 4 or sometimes even level 5. So that's fairly standard. It gives good stats, though. +1, +2. Pretty good stat line for a pilot. And then on attack once per turn, choose one of your resources, set it as active. Now, that is very, very good, because you can play a, you know, Gundam Aerial, you can put Suletta Mercury on that, and then you can stand a resource again, and then, you know, in some cases be able to play another 2-cost something, or maybe a 1-cost event or something like that. So 1-cost command card, I should say. So I think she's got a lot going for her. Any card that lets you restand resources is generally going to be pretty strong. So I'm going to put her in A for now. And, you know, I might even. I think if you're running the Witch from Mercury package, you're definitely going to be running Suletta Mercury. So I think I'm going to put her in S, actually. Yeah, I think it's because I think even just putting +1/+2 on a unit, even if you don't get the match pilot benefit, I think that's good because again, like her attack once per turn thing doesn't require her to be a link unit. It's just anything she's piloting, she'll give this ability. So yeah, okay. Now that I think about it like that, definitely S, I think, because she works on more than just the aerial. You know, the link unit is a bonus as usual, but she can give you that restanding a resource on anything she's attached to. So yeah, I think that's going to be S. Yeah. All right, and then we have the alt art Suletta Mercury as well. Be careful with those tomatoes. We're counting on you to garden well. And here we have our first base card from White, the Astacasia School of Technology Earth House. Level 2, cost 1. So it's a base you can throw out fairly early, 5 HP, which is the high end of HP on bases we've seen so far. There's one 4 HP base in green, I believe, but everything else is 5. But looking at this card, burst, deploy this card, standard for bases from what we've seen so far. Deploy, add 1 shield to your hand, again, standard for bases. You're replacing a 1 HP shield with a 5 HP shield. If you want to think about it that way, that's kind of the effect of playing a base, essentially. And you get that card in hand, too, which Gundam isn't like One Piece, where if a card doesn't have trigger in that game, you get it in your hand. In this game, if it doesn't have burst, it just gets trashed. So the fact that bases let you put that shield into your hand is kind of nice. It's kind of like play this, draw a card, too, so it's not bad. And then the activate main, rest this base, all friendly link units get AP +1 during this turn. Now, that's important because of a couple number breakpoints that we need to get to. Namely the 5 HP breakpoint, as far as, or 5 AP, I should say, breakpoint. So playing Suletta Mercury on the rare Gundam Aerial plus this base equals 5 damage. We'll see that kind of come together a little bit later. And that's enough to take out any other base, right? Because we just talked about 5 HP being the high limit for base health right now. So the fact that this card helps you get there, I think is really, really good. I like this in general. Just +1 AP is strong. You know, anything that helps you kind of like go through those breakpoints is going to be good. It does require a link unit though, so that's kind of what's keeping me from putting it in S. I think it is good. I think it's an A level card, but it's got that a little bit of enough of a hoop to jump through that I don't think it's going to be an auto include in every deck you put White in the main release. But for now, definitely a great card to put in beta. Into your beta kits. I'd put it in every beta deck I have White in. And here we have our legend rare from White. It's the Aile Strike Gundam. Level 5, so it doesn't come out until a little bit later in the game, but that's fine. Costs 4, it's a blocker, which is nice. And then when paired with a level 4 or higher pilot, choose one enemy unit with 4 or less HP, return it to its owner's hand. So this bouncing units back to its owner's hand is interesting in Gundam because it's been established in the rules that when you do this, the pilot goes too. In other games, a lot of times the cards that are attached to the card that's being bounced just go to the graveyard or the trash or whatever. Not so with pilots. They also go back to your hand. And I think, honestly, that makes bouncing things a little bit less good in this game because if you're bouncing a mobile suit and a pilot, well, if that's a link pilot, you're just giving them the opportunity to play it and attack again right away next turn. Sure, that does cost some resources to do it, but it is still a threat that you're going to kind of need to worry about. So, if you're getting rid of a blocker so you can get in with an attack, that's nice. Otherwise, if you're getting rid of something that you're worried about attacking you and you want to basically say, hey, if you want to get that attack next turn, you have to pay for it again, I think that's fine. But I do think bouncing is a little bit weaker in this game than it is in other games because of that. Not a ton, but a little bit weaker. That said, this unit is still a house, right? It's a 4/4. It's big. It's a blocker, which is nice. Named pilot Kira Yamato as the link unit trait here. So, it's strong, but yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to kind of put it in S, but weirdly enough, I kind of want to put it in A as well, just because it is, the bouncing thing. I don't think you get as great an effect when you compare this legend rare to like the blue one that we looked at, the RX-78-2, that just gives everything +1 AP. That's just such a good blanket buff you just get, right? So this, the blocker is nice, but I don't think the extra ability is super good, So I'm gonna put it in A for now. I think I'm gonna put it in the top of A. It's right on the outside of S. I do think that in a one set meta, you're probably going to be running it as kind of a top end in white, but I could definitely see this card be something that gets cut in favor of command cards that do something similar but are cheaper, right? Or more stuff from the Witch from Mercury side that deals with the other sort of themes with that we'll get into a little bit later. So surprisingly enough, I think this one is kind of on the edge between A and S for me. I'm a little bit less high on white in general as a color, and partially that's because, you know, the slower blocker type stuff is less my style of play. So maybe that's painting it with a little bit of negativity. To be honest, maybe I'm a little bit anti-bias versus this. But at the same time, as we check out the really awesome alt art for this, I do think it's a little bit weaker than the other Legend Rares that we've seen so far. And so moving on to the Strike Gundam. This is almost vanilla unit. Level 4, cost 2, 3/3. Decent stats. Deploy, draw one, then discard one. And it also has the Kira Yamato Link Pilot option too. So I like this as a common. It's got Link Pilot, which is great. It's specific. It's not trait. It's an individual, but it's still okay that it's there. I really like being able to cycle when you draw. And then this also feeds into a different theme that white has, which is getting benefits based on the number of command cards that are in your trash. So this can help you put a command card in your trash too to unlock other options with other cards. So on the virtue of this being decent stats, giving you a cycle, enabling this other thing, having a name pilot, I think this is a solid A for me. I don't think it's the greatest A. In fact, I'm going to put it below Demi Trainer because, again, I think Demi Trainer is just so universally useful in a deck that has a lot of blocking. So I'll put it right below there, but I think it's still good. Moving on to the Strike Dagger. Okay, 2 for 2 for 3/2. And so, yeah, level 2, cost 2, 3/2. No link unit, which is kind of a bummer, but at the same time, a 3/2 for 2, only requiring level 2 is pretty good. So I don't mind this. The no link unit does hurt it a little bit. I think it is one of those cards that you're definitely going to put in your deck if you're playing in the beta environment. It's on the fence whether or not this one would make it into a full release environment, right? And remember, as our rankings go, S is like, yeah, no matter what's coming in the full release, I can see this card definitely going in a deck. A is like, you definitely want it in beta. Maybe we're going to see it in full release. And then B is like, it's okay in beta and probably not going to see it in full release, So I think we're going to put Strike Dagger in, we'll put it towards the bottom of A there. I think it's pretty good, but I think it's, one of those cards that, may or may not last. In fact, I'm kind of tempted to put it in B. Yeah, let's move it to the top of B, honestly. And the reason I'm doing that is just because it doesn't have that link trade, Yeah, I think I'm going to put it in the top of B, actually. But it's not terrible. All right, so Kira Yamato, here's our other pilot, kind of our main Gundam Seed pilot, right? And level 4, cost 1, again, similar to the Suletta Mercury one, +2/+1, so it's got kind of the reverse stats that she gives. Kira gives you +2/+1, Suletta gives you +1/+2, and then on attack, choose an enemy unit, it gets AP -2 during this battle. So that presents a lot of really, really nice stuff as far as trading. We do also see other things in white that lets you attack with something that has blocker and then restand it at the end of the turn so that you can use it as a blocker later. So I like that this gives you the chance maybe of attacking into something, having it live long enough then to be a blocker on your opponent's turn. The AP -2 is pretty important. And again, the fact that it just needs to be paired with any mobile suit. It doesn't necessarily need to be a link unit to make this go off. 2/1 is a good stat line. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Suletta. I'm going to put it up in S because I think this is just one of those pilot cards where you're going to include it if you're playing white, pretty much no matter what. Stats are good. The ability is good. It's easily pairable with anything. So I like it. I think that's another S-class card in my opinion. Let's move on to our first combination, command and pilot card. It is level 2, cost 1, Hawk of Endymion. Hawk of Endymion? I don't know. I haven't seen Gundam Seed. I know. It's like one of the few series I have not seen. So if I mess up the pronunciation with it, that's why I haven't seen it yet. It's got the command ability of main/action, so you can do it on your main phase on your turn or during action windows on your opponent's turn. Choose one enemy unit with 3 or less HP, return it to the owner's hand. So I think this can be a nice little card to throw in there to, reduce an attack that's coming in. Your opponent needs to do some calculating with, okay, if I attack with this and I attack with this, then it's going to be enough damage to do this. And so being able to bounce something, again, I said I'm not as big of a fan of bounce in this game, but I do like it as something to do on your opponent's turn to mess up their plan, right? So I like a little bit more on your opponent's turn than your turn, so I do think it's solid there. And +1/+0 for 1 at level 2, decent little pilot, Earth Alliance trait, so that can pair with a couple things here and there. So yeah, I think it's a decent A card. Where do I put it in A though? I tend to rate pilots a little bit higher because I like the versatility. That said, I think I'm gonna put it right there for now. Sorry, Mula Flaga. That's where you go for now. But at least you made A. Congrats. All right, and our first base. So our second base that we're going to take a look at. It's the Archangel, again from Gundam Seed, level 3, cost 1, and it has the activate main once per turn, pay 2. Choose one friendly unit with blocker, set it as active. It can't attack during this turn. So this is what I'm talking about, where there's things in white that give you the ability to attack with a unit that has blocker on it, and then use something like this to restand it so that it's ready to block again on your opponent's turn. Because remember, part of blocking is exhausting the unit to block. So this lets you do that. It's important that it says can't attack during this turn, otherwise you double attack potentially and all that. So I like that you can get your attack in with your blocking unit, ready it again, and then have it set up for your opponent's turn to get in the way of something. So I think this base is really strong. It's got 5 HP, 1 cost. Level 3 is very achievable. 2 is really not that much to pay in turns down the road as far as enabling this. So especially if it's like you get an attack in, take out a shield or something like that, and then you set it up to trade to prevent them from attacking into one of your things, and maybe also take out one of their units if they decide to attack in. Like I like it a lot. I think this is S, honestly. I think this is a card that it's going to be very hard not to include, mainly because blocker is so prevalent in white that if you're going to be putting white into one of your color combinations, I think you're probably going to be including this because you're probably also going to have some blockers. So I think that's the S. It's not the top of S, but it's an S class card to me. So let's move on to the Perfect Strike Gundam. All right, level 5, cost 3. So lower on the cost, higher on the level. It's a 4/4 stat line, pretty good. It's a blocker again, great. Deploy, choose one enemy unit with 1 HP, return it to its owner's hand. So you damage something on their side a little bit with another attack, blah blah blah. You play this, and then on deploy you bounce it to their hand. And again, this is a way to get something out of the way a little bit early. I'll say once more, I don't value bouncing in this game as much as I do in other games, just because of the link unit allowing, so much attacking the turn it comes into play. But this does have the Earth Alliance trait, and obviously if you're good about bouncing something at the right time, you can cause a lot of problems for your opponents. So it's still decent, right? I think the big thing that the Perfect Strike Gundam has going for it is that it's just straight up Earth Alliance trait and not Kira Yamato, right? It's usable by a number of different pilots. Hawk of Endymion, for instance. Mula Flaga you can throw on there, right? And get that link unit, first turn attack thing. So I do think it's good. I think this is... I am going to reserve judgment on if I think this is S or not. I could see cards coming into play that push this out, mainly because the level 5 makes it a little bit prohibitive. But, if you hit level 5 and you play it, it's a good stat line. It does good things. So I'm going to put this right at the top of A, actually. I really do like this card a lot. It's gone really well for me in my games when I've played. I'm just not 100% convinced that we aren't going to get a little bit lower level option that is approximately as good, which would kind of push this one to the side. So I'm going to put it in the top of A, but this is a card I could easily see being, S quality once it comes out. I'm on the fence about it, but a little bit more on the A side at the moment. Great card either way, though. And here we have Gundam Aerial. Okay, this is the rare version of it. Level 5, costs 3. 3/3 stat line, so, 1/1 less than the card we just saw. Pilot trait of only Suletta Mercury, so a little bit more limited as far as the link unit options here. And then it says, while there are 4 or more command cards in your trash, this card in your hand gets cost -2. So it could just be 1, which is like okay. You know, then I guess that makes the 3/3 stat line a little bit easier. I think in the beta environment, it's really difficult to stack your trash with enough command cards to have this go off, in my experience. I don't think it's worth, you know, kind of focusing on that command side right now in the beta environment. I think it's neat that this is a trait of White, and when I say trait, it's one of the themes of White, this sort of like stacking your trash with command cards. We're going to see that pop up again. I think it's a neat thing, but in the beta environment, certainly it's not that great, and I'm still, you know, kind of hesitant to say that it's going to be useful once the full release comes out. So I have a little bit of a hard time even putting this one in A, because honestly, this is a card that I don't really love running in the beta environment even right now. I run it because, you know, it's nice once you get to that point in the game to be able to play it with Suletta Mercury, right, and get the link unit. So it still gets run because of that. And so by virtue of it being usable in the beta environment, I'm going to put it in A, but I'm going to put it at the bottom of A, right? Just because I don't think it's as likely to see, you know, play in the full release outside of a heavy Witch from Mercury themed deck, right? But it's interesting. I like the idea of where this is going. I just think right now in the beta environment, it's not spectacular, and I have a little bit of doubts about the full set release environment. So we'll put it there for now. All right. And then it does have a nice alt art, though. All the alt arts are really, really great, and they're all very different, too. The foiling, the look of these are all very unique. So I do like that. Pretty neat. All right, Launcher Strike Gundam. Here we go. So this is one that I think I only got one of them in my my beta kit. I wish I would have gotten more because I think it's a pretty great card. Level 4, costs 3, 3/4 stat line, blocker, and Earth Alliance traits. So I think it's got a lot of what you want, certainly in the beta environment, where it's got decent stats, decent level, you know, linkable with more people than just one pilot, right? So it's got that versatility plus just decent stats, and the fact that it's a blocker is nice. Going back to the aerial stuff for a second, I think you can say that because White is a slower playing color in general, that it's okay that you've got some higher level stuff to you know, play around with. You're going to get to that point in the game more often, and you know, this is going to help support that there. So maybe I'm underrating the level 5 stuff in White a little bit too much, but I'm going to stick with my plan for now. But either way, going back to the Launcher Strike Gundam, I think it is a good card. I think I'm going to put it, you know, I'll put it like right around here. Again, I don't think it's as universally great as a Demi Trainer is for just getting in the way of an attack, but I do like that, you know, I do like everything else about it. I think it's a very playable card. And I generally do like the Seed stuff better than the Witch from Mercury stuff for now, but I will say I think that's generally because we need to see more support for the Witch from Mercury stuff to really, you know, get a good feel about how strong it's going to be. Speaking of Witch from Mercury, Darilbalde is one of the mobile suits from that show. It's a 3/2. It's for level 3, cost 2 in the game, 4/2 stat line. So heavy on the attack, a little bit lighter on the HP. Deploy, choose an enemy unit with 1 HP, return it to its owner's hand. So it's got that 1 HP bounce again. Yeah, sure, you can bounce a Demi Trainer, but a lot of times this is going to end up being used, in my experience anyway, to bounce something that you've gotten a little bit low, but you can't kill it efficiently, so you just want to get it off the board for a moment. It's got the Academy trait too, so it's a little bit more useful. And, you know, in that sense, I'm actually going to put it like a little bit above the Gundam Aerial here. I think it is pretty good. Again, it's a little bit more versatile. The 2 HP on it is a little bit rough. You know, you really kind of need a pilot on it to have it survive any reasonable hit, you know. But if you put like a Suletta Mercury on it, then you're going to get the Link unit because she is Academy trait, and you're going to go up to a 5/4. So that's a pretty decent stat line. So I think it's decent. 4 attack is nice to have early in the game too, because you will be able to trade well with a lot of things. So I'll put it in A, but kind of towards the bottom. Next, the Michaelis, another Witch from Mercury suit. Once more, level 3, cost 2, 3/3 stat line, a little bit more balanced stats. Academy trait once again. I like the versatility. And this one says, while there are 4 or more command cards in your trash, back to that again, this unit gets AP +1 and HP +1. So that makes it a 4/4 for cost 2 at level 3 with a link trait. This card is really good if you can get the command card in your trash thing going. I think, unfortunately, in the beta environment, it is a little bit tougher to get that going. especially because you want to think about, oh, hey, this is great. I can play a bigger thing early. Well, in reality, you can't, because it's going to be a little bit later in the game before you have that, 4 command cards in your trash in many cases, right? So I think it's got some exciting text on it. I think in the beta environment, it's not going to live up to its full potential, but I do think it is worth putting in a deck. I do think it is an A quality thing. I'm going to rate it just below the Darilbalde, just because I think the 4 attack early on is pretty useful in clearing things. But I do like the Michaelis, a decent amount. Next, we have the Strike Gundam, back to a Gundam Seed again. So this is a level 4 2 cost for a 3/4. No abilities or anything like that. Kira Yamato for the link. And I think what I like about this card is that it's a 3/4 for 2. Level 4 makes it fairly playable. It doesn't have the blocker ability that, or the abilities that some of the other ones have, the draw 1, discard 1. The fact that it's vanilla is like okay. Level 4 holds it back a little bit. I think I'm gonna put this one on the top of B, where again I think it's one of those cards that you could cut pretty easily once the full set comes out, and you just get like stuff that's around the same stat line and cost and level that's just better. But for the beta environment, sure, throw it in your deck. I think I have some in my decks that include white, but I would see this getting cut very, very quickly in the full release. So that's where I'm at on that one. All right, the M1 Astray. People love the Astray. Great mech design, for sure. But let's talk about the card. It's all 2s. Level 2, cost 2, 2/2 stat line, triple ship alliance trait. While you have another triple ship alliance unit in play, this unit gets AP +1 and blocker. So it is interesting because it works well with a lot of the other seed mobile suits that have that triple ship alliance trait. So a lot of times when you're playing it, in my experience at least, it will end up getting blocker. The awkward moments are when they remove the other triple ship alliance mobile suit, and then suddenly it's just a 2/2 with nothing going for it at all, right? It goes from a 3/2 blocker to a 2/2 nothing, So I think when you've got the ability online, it's great. It's great for the cost. When you don't, it's definitely subpar. So the effectiveness of this card varies wildly game to game, depending on what your opponent's able to do, what boards you're able to set up. It's very inconsistent, I think, is the best way to describe this card. So I like it, but the consistency issues are going to put it down in B for me. I'm going to... Yeah, I'll put it towards the top of B, because again, I could see in the full release maybe a list that's really well equipped to make this go off fairly often. But again, just your opponent knows what they need to remove to nerf it, right? You can't really protect it from having that bad thing happen to it, right? So in that sense, I think I can't place it any higher than B, but I'll put it in the top of B for now. It's a very good bad card, or bad good card, could be both, depending on the situation. Moving on to Guel Jeturk from Jeturk House. Academy trait, another Witch from Mercury pilot, level 3, cost 1, so 1 level less than some of the better pilots, 1/1 stat line, pretty solid. And then activate in main once per turn. If your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, set this unit as active. It can't attack during this turn. So if you put him on a blocker, it does let you, restand that again and potentially have that blocker available for next turn. It also has the added benefit of you're able to attack with the unit that he's attached to, stand it, and then that protects it from your opponent's attacks too, because remember, in this game, you can't attack exhausted units, except for one card in green. We'll get to that. So it generally keeps it a little bit on the safer side, So I like it overall. It's not an S-class pilot, but I think I would put it in A. The problem is that the 8 cards in hand in the beta environment, it just does not happen. I have not seen this happen a lot. The card draw is not there in this very limited card pool, so you almost never get this ability off. So it is just kind of a 1 for a 1/1 stat line. So it's going to be one of those pilots you're going to put in your deck pretty often in beta for white, just to have pilots, right? The Academy trade is nice to link with like the Darilbalde, which is his mobile suit, or the Michaelis or something like that. But until the full set comes out, I don't know how useful this is going to be. 8 cards in hand is a lot for your opponent. So I'm going to put him at the very, very bottom of A, I think. Barely A. Barely A. And then moving on to another command card, the Witch and the Bride. Level 5, 2 costs, so pretty high level required for this. You do get the activate main from the burst, which is kind of interesting. Some command cards have that, some don't. This one does. You can do main or action as far as when you play this card. Choose one enemy unit with 5 or less HP, return it to its owner's hand. 5 or less HP returns pretty much everything in the game to the opponent's hand right now. So it is, for the beta environment's sake, kind of a return any card to your opponent's hand, which is nice. You can return some expensive stuff, but at the same time, the level system in this game means that the costs for things are never really going to be that expensive. So the longer the game goes on, remember, we have to be at a 5 resource or more turn with this card, the easier it is for your opponent to play those cards the next turn. And like I said, it's, if they can play it with the link unit, they can just attack again, sometimes at minimal cost when we get later in the game. So again, the bounce in this game, just because of the link units. And then also, I suppose I should add this in too, is that the longer the game goes on, because the general card cost in this game tends to be a little bit lower, because again, remember, a lot of other card games will gate card power by cost. This game gates it by number of resources in play, and so that means you can play multiple powerful cards later in the game much easier than you can in other card games. So that makes bounce even worse, really, if you think about it. It's even easier for them to replay it the next turn. So while I think, again, this card can really ruin your opponent's day if it's played at just the right moment, I just don't think it's as strong as in other card games. That said, for the sake of Gundam, you're probably going to want to use it in beta, certainly, and maybe the full release, maybe. But I have to put this, I'm really deciding between the top of A and the bottom of B for this. Because, again, I'm just not a believer in bounce being very good, and the fact that you have to wait until level 5 to even play it. I guess unless it comes out in burst, because burst doesn't do anything with the cost. It just you do what the burst says. So in this case, it's activate this card's main, so you don't have to worry about the level then. So even with that, I'm still really tempted to put it down in B. I really don't love bounce in this game that much. I wonder if there's going to be a way to mess with your opponent's hand or something later on. But this is a tough one to decide. Bottom of A or top of B? I think I have to put in the bottom of A, just because, again, in the beta environment, I think it is a card you'll include. But it's right on the edge of a card where I'm not so sure it's going to see a lot of play once the full release comes out. So we'll put it in the bottom of A. 2 more cards to go, as we have Overflowing Affection. Now, you remember last time we talked about the, Unending Resolve or something Resolve. I can't remember exactly the name of the card off the top of my head right now for some reason. And that was level 3 cost 2 for a, or was it? Yeah, or cost 3, I think it was. Either way, it costed more, and it was draw 2 cards, just straight up draw 2 cards. I think this card is miles better than that one, because it is draw 2, discard 1, level 2, 1 cost. Again, this feeds into the put command cards in your trash theme that White wants to do. So right off the bat, discard is good for this. It's not a negative thing. Secondly, just getting to filter is fine, right? Drawing 2 and then you get rid of a card you don't really need that much. Perfect, right? It's cheaper, so you can play it earlier in the game and tailor your hand going into the mid game better, which I think is strong. So I am much, much more into this card than I am into the blue one. Let me just grab the blue one really quick here. Yeah, so here's a show of resolve. Level 4, 3 cost. I wanted to make sure I had the numbers right so I could compare the two. So level 4, 3 cost, draw 2. I don't like this card at all. It comes later in the game. Yeah, you have to pay 3 to draw 2. That's a big chunk of your turn, right? Versus level 2, 1 cost, draw 2, discard 1. Again, the discard feeds what White wants to do in a lot of cases. And the cycle's fine, right? Like, you're probably not going to mind discarding a card anyway. So way better draw card, I think, than a Show of Resolve, in my opinion. So I'm going to put Overflowing Affection in, I'll put it like, I'll put it near the top of A. I think it's that good. I think it is that good. I'm probably just making Red Zone Rogue even angrier with my commentary on drawing cards, but that's how I feel about it. This one's way, way better than the Show of Resolve. All right. moving on to our final card. There's the alt art for Overflowing Affection. And then Naval Bombardment is our final card in white to take a look at. Level 2, 1-cost command card. Burst. Choose an enemy unit. It gets AP -3 this turn. Pretty solid, right? But potentially, you know, if it's like they don't have any attacks left, then you're like, oh, well, bummer, right? And then otherwise, you can play it as an action. Choose one enemy unit, or choose one friendly unit with blockers, sorry. It gets AP +3 during this turn. That's a really interesting card, both from the sake of being able to attack into opponents something, being able to just straight up play it. Oh, actually, no, it's action, so you can only play it on your opponent's turn. So they choose to attack. You have an action window where you can play it. Suddenly they're attacking into something much bigger than they expected, and you get that trade. So I think you can do some kind of fun surprises to your opponent with this. So I think it's good. I don't know if it's necessarily S, but I do think it's near the top of A. I'm gonna put it around here because you're definitely putting it in every white deck you use in beta. And I could see this being a card in some constructed decks too. Because again, AP +3 is just really good. That can just really ruin someone's day. Because again, we're talking about a game where generally the mobile suits, when piloted, rarely get higher than 5. There are a couple cases where it can get up to 6 or so, but it's rare that it gets higher than 5. So AP +3 combined with whatever attack your blocker already has is going to create a trade in most cases that you play this card. So I think it's really good. I mean, imagine suddenly your Demi Trainer becomes a 4/1, right, and takes out one of their bigger mobile suits. They're not going to feel good about that. So I like Naval Bombardment. I think it's strong. I think we're going to put it in A. Solid, like upper middle of the pack in A. So, you know, going back and reviewing white, I think this is the color in the beta edition that is the most, hey, look at the flavor of what this color is going to do. More than it's strong right now. I think white is objectively the weakest color in the beta environment right now, but I don't think it's going to be weak in the full release. I think it's going to be pretty strong, actually, if you're going to look to play a control deck or something a little bit slower. It's just some of the cards here, again, needing your opponent to have 8 cards in hand, needing to have X amount of, you know, command cards in the trash. Like, that's just harder to do in the beta environment games, at least that I've been a part of so far. So a lot of these cards, I've seen most people lean towards blue-green as the best color combination right now, and I think that's right. So if you're excited about white, don't get discouraged if it's not succeeding for you that well in beta. I think it's going to be good in the full release. But again, I think it's just we're going to need to see the full card pool before we can see the full scope of what white can do. But as it is right now, this is what I think we're going to see once the full release kind of gets revealed or released eventually, is that those 3 cards on the top, the 2 pilots and the base, are going to be in every deck that uses white, in my opinion. And then the A are the cards that are, yeah, maybe. I would not be surprised. Maybe, maybe not. But definitely a must include in a beta deck at least. And then B are the cards that I don't think are going to make it into a full release deck from white, but they're like okay for beta. Just a review there. So what did you think? Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree. If you love my list, totally hate it. Either way, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. And I'll be getting out the next color, the final color in the beta environment, green, in the near future. So once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.